after the 8th year, I was gone. I was burnt out. And I was like, I told my mom, keep all those books away, take them out of my room because I see one more law book, I'm just going to like lose it.
You know that my surname is Jaworska, right?
Yes. Oh my God, you do have he used to be a senator and he used to be a very famous basketball player. The Philippines is one of the forefronts in legislating for women's rights.
Her Dubai story.
Welcome to Her Dubai Story, the podcast where we dive into extraordinary tales of women who challenge norms, redefine success, and inspire change in the Middle East and beyond. I'm Emilia Jaworska, your host, and today I'm thrilled to introduce a very special guest whose journey is nothing short of remarkable. In this episode, I have the privilege of speaking with Kim Medina, Director of Legal and Compliance at Knightsbridge Group. Kim works with high net worth individuals, advising them on corporate immigration and family matters, a field where precision, strategy, and deep legal knowledge are crucial. In this episode, we will discuss Kim's personal journey, what brought her to Dubai, and how she built her career here. As Kim comes from the Philippines, we will also discuss the roles Filipinos play in Dubai's economy and why so many consider it their second home. We will also discuss the business environment for women in Dubai, Kim's personal decision to revert from Catholicism to Islam and how it shapes her life today, but also the legal landscape in Dubai, Sharia versus civil law, and the importance of wills, powers of attorney, especially for women. Whether you are considering a move to Dubai, thinking about starting a business, or just curious about the realities of legal work in the UAE, this episode is packed with insights, advice, and eye-opening perspectives. So, grab your coffee, tune in, and let's get started. Hi, Kim.
Hello, good morning, Amelia.
Good morning. Nice to have you here. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
It's super interesting to have you here.
Thank you.
Because not only you are head of legal and compliance at the legal firm, but also you are from the Philippines.
Yes.
And the Filipinos consist of almost 1/4 of the population of Dubai.
That's correct, yes.
Which means that every fourth person that we meet comes from the Philippines.
Yeah. They say you throw a stone, you're more likely to hit a Filipino.
Oh my God. That's a nice joke. I'm not going to repeat it. Okay, Kim, so tell us, what is your story and how did it happen that you ended up in Dubai?
Yeah, so I came here in late 2016.
Okay.
Straight out of law school.
Okay.
So I remember back then, I was just too tired and burnt out because what I did, straight out of uni, I went to law school. So it's 8 straight years of studying.
8 years of studying law?
Yes. Because you have to do your bachelor's degree and then you have to do the Bachelor of Law degree.
Okay.
So those are 2 degrees. I have been advised by my mom that maybe you want to take a short break, try to, apply for some internship and things like that. But then I was really so motivated. And I feel like if I do get a short break, I probably might lose my momentum and will not go back pursue law. And it has really been a dream to become a lawyer. I mean, I've been dreaming of those black robes. Maybe I become a member of the Supreme Court, things like that. That's the aim, basically, when I was in uni, going to law school. So I didn't listen to my mom. But then, being the mom that she is, she has always supported what I wanted. And she really thinks that I had that proper mindset anyways, which she also didn't want to break. So I went straight to law school. That was another 4 years. After the 8th year, I was gone. I was burnt out. And I was like, I told my mom, keep all those books away, take them out of my room because I see one more law book, I'm just gonna like lose it. So, and then one morning I was just conversing with a friend of mine who's already here in Dubai. She's actually in Abu Dhabi. And then she used to be my classmate in uni. So she was just talking about her life here. And then that made me kind of like curious, you know, because I've never been really away from my family. I've always been in the hometown where I was born and where I grew up in. And I was talking to my mom, like, what do you think if I move abroad? Maybe that's where I can do my internship, you know, before I practice law in the Philippines and things like that. And my mom is like, yeah, why don't, you know, it's not a bad idea, but that's, you know, like Dubai's too far.
Yeah.
You know, like, what if something happens? It's not easy to get you out of there. So I did decide on two places. So one is Dubai and one in Singapore. So everyone would agree that it has almost identical environment, also very fast-paced, and in terms of
And a lot of expats.
exactly, it's also very welcoming to expatriates. So the decision-making process was that, okay, I wanted to, because I've been in my hometown since I was born.
What is your hometown?
It's called Baguio. It's up north of Manila. It's
Okay.
called the summer capital because it's always cold.
Okay. It's the opposite, because in Poland, when something where a place is cold, it means it's a winter capital. But
Yes, because everyone during the summer goes up in the mountains
down.
to cool down. Exactly,
Okay.
and in the summer it's basically a wet summer, so
Okay.
it's really nice to spend your summer in. Except for people who doesn't like rain.
Yeah.
So when I was making the decision, I didn't want anyone to kind of like make it more difficult for me to decide. So I was doing all the brainstorming myself. I didn't want to get the opinions of others, especially the opinion of my mom, because obviously they will be more sheltered of their kids.
They
So-
always want to protect us, right? And
Exactly.
they probably they didn't travel that much.
Yeah.
And they're just scared of an unknown, right?
Exactly. So when I made the decision, I was like, if I choose Singapore and I get scared, and that's something that I wanna overcome, the fear.
Yes.
You know, Singapore is too close. It's, I think, just 3 hour flight from the Philippines. If I get scared, that's it. I'm gonna jump on a plane, fly back home, and then forget about all of this.
Wow. So
Yes.
you intentionally made yourself uncomfortable,
Yes.
and you went further.
Yes. That's why I chose Dubai. So Dubai is 8 hours away from home. And, you know, there's a lot of resources that I'm going to put into it. So I cannot be scared. There's no time to be scared. So that's when I made the decision, packed my bags. And I told my mom, you know, I'm going to give myself, it's not as if I'm going to be there for the next 6 months, not knowing what to do. I'm going to give myself, say, 30 days, a full month of just exploring the city, see if there's any opportunities for me. Maybe I can really do find internships that will be good for my career.
Yeah.
So fast forward to November of 2016 when I moved to Dubai. There was a little bit of, I'm not going to lie, there was a little bit of a culture shock.
What shocked you?
So it's more of a, because Philippines, even though it's running behind in terms of its economy and things like that, it's very industrialized, it's very civilized, and it's predominantly obviously a Christian Catholic society. So when I came here, you know, probably I didn't do a lot of research that kind of like opens me up that even though, and Dubai, it's 8-9 years before, it's not as open as it is now to expatriate. So obviously it was still a lot closer to what it has always been, Islamic country. I remember during my first Ramadan, everything was covered. I don't know if you remember those
Yes, I
times.
remember.
Where in the restaurants they put a cover,
Yeah.
so
I
you know.
couldn't find a coffee. I think I found
Right?
one hotel when I could get a coffee during Ramadan. And now it's totally different. Everything
I
is
know.
open. You cannot actually feel that it's Ramadan anymore.
Exactly.
Except that in some places they don't play the music.
Yes. I
That's
think in the outer parts of Dubai, like Sharjah, for example, maybe Abu Dhabi, there's still a little bit more
true.
kind of like
Conservative.
conservative. So when I came here, I never really imagined that, like a lot of women really wear the abaya, the hijab, and obviously the niqab, which to me was like, oh, that's very interesting, but it wasn't what I used to. So
Hijab, just let's explain. Hijab is when you cover your head,
yes,
your hair,
yes, your
and
hair,
niqab is when you also cover
cover
your
your
face
face
to
or
show
just
only
or
eyes,
show
right?
only your eyes. Yes. So I was like, it was difficult. I found it a little bit difficult to find my footing. But I said, this is what I have. This is the only time I can probably invest into being here. I cannot waste, obviously, resources, my parents' resources, in financing my stay here. It's not a cheap country to be in,
Yes.
especially if you don't have nothing to back you up
Yes.
in the country.
So you didn't. You are not coming from like wealthy
Yeah,
family with.
no.
Okay.
We're just, I would say, lower upper middle class. I did remember back when I was very little. I grew up with my grandmother, and I remember, because when you're a kid, you don't realize that you actually don't have enough money
Yes.
for
You're just happy with simple
exactly,
things.
and obviously your parents or your grandmother, again, they're very sheltered. They don't expose you to these things. Although at early on, when I'm starting to understand, they're starting kind of like telling me that life is not that easy for us. It's not the same with probably your friends who are, who can travel, who can have this, who can buy a lot more toys, that we didn't have enough money to actually buy food for dinner. So, but alhamdulillah, my grandparents and my parents really, they tried their best to put up a good education for me, send me to the best schools.
That's an amazing investment of parents, and basically I know because I I know quite a few people from the Philippines as well. That in your culture is that you are paying back your parents, right?
Yes, yes.
After you got educated and you got a better job.
Well, I think they growing up, and it passes on from generation to generation. You just feel like it's now your time to
Yes.
support them, because all your life they've been supporting you. They've been looking after your food, your education, everything.
Yeah.
Head to toe, they are providing for you. And now that they're at that age, they obviously they don't get any more young.
Yeah.
At some point you see that they're getting old
Yeah.
and
Weaker, and now it's our
weaker,
time,
right? So I want to give them the opportunity to also enjoy their lives without having to think of, oh, where do I get this money for this? Again, it's my time to
Yeah.
look after them, to provide for them after all of those years.
Do you have the retirements or any social help in the Philippines?
We do, but most of it, it's a lot better when you when you work for the government. They look after their, especially the senior citizens. When you hit that certain age, then you get a lot more benefits. So, but we do have social benefits after certain retirement, but it's not much. It's enough probably to support themselves, but not to support an entire family. Obviously, it all depends with what you were back when you were working. Your level of education, a lot of factors come into play when you do get your social benefits and we call it the social security system. So it's a withholding tax that they deduct from your
Yeah.
monthly salary.
But it's usually not enough. So even
Not
in
enough,
my
yes.
country, it's usually not a very good
Yes.
pension at the end. So, but yeah, but it's about also some cultural differences. I think that I was once asked why you Europeans, you don't support your parents that much. And I was actually shocked, because this person, she wanted to ask me like how we can influence young Europeans to support our parents more. And my answer was like, usually we do support when there is a need, but it's always also different countries, different starting point that we are coming from, right? That it's
correct.
rather that our parents are supporting us, and with time we don't need to support them that much, but when they need, we should support them as well.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, I want to, maybe a lot of people would think, especially maybe from the West, that we are obligated
Yeah.
to support the parents. There's no obligation. It comes out of how we probably grew up. That's kind of like how we think is the right way. But is there any like repercussions if we don't? There's nothing. So it's just out of like your own volition. If you can, please do. But if you cannot, there's no mandate to support your parent. It's more of a cultural norm than anything else.
Of course. Okay, so how did your beginnings look like here?
So going back to that story, so I said 30 days, that's it. I cannot afford any more days after that. So I was looking, I was exploring the city, in the best way I could at the time, while I was looking for opportunities online. And I narrowed it down just so I'm not all over the place. So I did look for local law firms, for international law firms. But obviously, as a fresh grad, my chances of getting into the big law firms are not high. So I did really focus on the local law firms, because when I read about it, the Philippines legal system and the local legislation here are quite of similar. So I said, okay, maybe I should focus on local law firms.
Yeah.
So just the last week, I think I've got like few days left on my current visa, and I was already calling my mom. I think there's really no chances for me here, and I didn't want to extend because it's just a lot of money. I got a call from a local law firm, and they offered internship, and thank God it was a paid internship. It wasn't high; it was less than $1,000. And I was discussing it with my mom. I think I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't, like as high as I expected it, based on the materials I've read online. I'm gonna
It's just the
I'm gonna
beginning,
try
right?
it. Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Of course.
So my mom said, if you're not rushing, if it's not an impulsive decision, go for it.
I'll just tell you, 15 years ago, no, more than 15 years, I don't know, maybe 17 years ago right now, my first internship was for $100 monthly. Can you imagine that? But I was still doing it because I wanted to learn.
Yes.
Right? And I knew that nobody will give me a great job if I don't have
Exactly.
experience. And you can read thousands books, but then what you really
The
learn...
practical ones is what they're
Exactly.
looking for. Yes.
Exactly. So, of course, Dubai is different. It's much more expensive,
Oh, definitely, yes.
but you need to start from somewhere.
Exactly. And also I need, to have something to allow me to stay here for a longer time, legalize my residence here. So that's what I was like thinking about. I was telling my mom it's going to be difficult for me to send something back home now that I'm still a freshie here. And she was like, there's not a problem. Just, take your time, find your footing, when you're comfortable. If there's anything that you can send to help us, please do. If there's nothing, that's not a problem. So I accepted it, the internship. It's a local law firm. I started, they put me on in front of at the reception. So they asked me to look after the reception while doing a little bit of legal research. So whenever it's not busy, what I do is I look into their current cases, the past cases, so I learn something. So I really want to maximize the time I had in there, because I knew that I'm not going to be there for too long.
Yeah.
Even after my internship, they did offer me to become permanent, but I just know that at that point, that wasn't the environment that I want to basically build my career in. I knew that I wanted to be more in commercial space and not on divorce, criminal law, and things like that. I just really want to start something
Okay.
and familiarize myself with how they do it
Okay.
in the country. So after that, after my internship, I started looking for other job. So I read again what I do. I filter it down to what I think I want to be in, just so I'm not all over the place. So I'm looking at the CSP. So that's how my career in CSP started. So CSP is corporate service provider. So I enjoy a lot of this commercial structuring. It makes me really like it lifts my mood. So
Okay.
I came across this back then they were a startup, and I was very blessed really that I came across them. It was a very boutique CSP slash law firm, and they were a team of three people at the time. I was the fourth to join. They were really just starting, and you see the humble beginnings. So whatever they know, they don't kind of like back down of sharing it with you. So that's how I kind of like learned. They let me work on things hands on, and they let me meet the clients to kind of like build my confidence up.
Okay.
And then I stayed there for another
So
two,
they
three
started
years.
engaging you since the
Yes.
beginning, even if
Yes.
you had no experience. They wanted you to get exposed, and they were sharing
Exactly.
their knowledge with
And I
you.
think it's noteworthy to say that they are a team of Muslims. It wasn't a European firm at all. So that's kind of like when I also got open up into Islam, how it is actually, as opposed to what I hear, what I read, based on what I know before
Okay.
coming.
So what was the things that you thought are different, like
Yeah.
the misconceptions that you had, and then how it turned out?
Back in the Philippines, obviously you only hear about it on the media.
Yeah.
And on the media, all they talk about is, not the good things, like
Yeah.
the war that's happening here, the war that's happening there. So I have this really, imagination that Muslims that's what it's about. Until I came here in an Islamic country, and that's when I realized that they're actually very peaceful. What do you call those people? And especially that joining this firm and they're all Muslim, and I didn't know then that they pray 5 times a day. So it was also like, what are they doing, at certain times? And then I had a friend, and she's a hijabi. She's one of the first one. I just came across her on the hallway. She was carrying this big bouquet of flowers, and I was like, and she was a tiny tiny lady. And I was like, are you okay? And then when she kind of like popped her head out, she was a hijabi, and that's when we started conversing. And then I was asking her about like, what do you guys do? Why do I hear this call to prayer like 5 times a day or 4 times a day during the day? And she was like, because we have to pray 5 times a day, and a lot of obviously practicing Muslims do that. Pause whatever they do and just give 2-3 minutes to just read a little prayer. So and then after that, my previous boss then told me that you have so much ahead of you, and I really think it's time for you. Not that we want you to be not in the firm, but I think this is a little bit too slow for how your career is potentially looking for you. So I suggest I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna write you recommendation letters if you need it, for you to step up and join the big boys.
Wow,
Yes.
so much support.
Yes.
And
Yes.
actually, from the very Muslim company, and we hear sometimes that in Islam, women are not supported,
Yes.
and here is a totally opposite story.
Exactly. Which is, at the beginning again, everything was just like, oh, what is this true? Is it more of a cultural than religious thing? But then I was like, I was adamant in the beginning, are you just pulling my leg? Are you trying to see whether I'm like fishing?
Yeah.
But no, he was really very, very supportive.
So do you think it was religious or it was cultural or a mix?
I think it's a mix of both.
Personality
Yeah.
as well, right?
And I really think he saw something in me that if they kind of like keep me in a small space, it's gonna kind of like stop if if doesn't delay a foreseen potential. So he said, I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna link you up with people that I know. And that's when I started, you know, talking to people, and then I managed to land a job in a bigger and much more renowned law firm, which is they also a CSP. This is where I really learned a lot about legacy planning, because the bread and butter of that firm is into foundations, trusts, legacy planning in general. So that also really made me very, very interested. Obviously, it's not a comfortable discussion right in the beginning, because you do talk about death, the passing
Yeah,
on
I
of.
think let's explain the legacy planning
Yes.
because maybe I don't know if it's understandable for
Yes.
everyone, but legacy planning is to basically plan what happens with your
Yes.
wealth after you die, right?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
obviously it's not a subject that people want to talk about,
That's
but it's
true.
important to
It
talk
is
about.
very, very important. Like a lot of people overlook it, because I understand it's very scary. It's
Yeah.
not a comfortable topic, but what it does is basically it protects your the assets that you have accumulated. Doesn't matter if it's old money or something that you just acquired now. So because you don't know what's going to happen to you today, tomorrow, right? So it's really important that you put something in place that in case these things happen, your family, your assets, the very things that you care about and that you really worked hard for are protected.
Yeah.
And you know that there's continuity. It's going to be in the hands of people that you trust, you care about, and the very hands of people you want to pass it on, basically. So legacy planning are different kinds of vehicles. We do have the trust, which is widely known in the West. We have the Swiss trust, for example. So it's a vehicle where the vehicle owns the assets on your behalf, on the behalf of your beneficiary in trust. And then we do have a foundation in we also have it in the UK, in Guernsey or in Jersey, as well as in the UAE. We do have 3 at the moment in Ras Al Khaimah, in the DIFC here in Dubai, and in Abu Dhabi Global Market in Abu Dhabi. So it works very similar to a trust, except that it has a juridical entity. That means it's a company on its own. It can enter into contracts. It can sue, can be sued. So that's the difference between the trust and foundations in the grand scheme of things. And then we do have wills. Wills are could be holographic or testamentary. So holographic is something that you write by yourself as a testator. It's not valid in all of the countries, but for example, in the Philippines, we do recognize a validity of a written will, a holographic will. And then we do have that testamentary will, which is registered with, for example, the DIFC here or the Dubai courts. So in case something unfortunate happens, your executors or whoever is written on the will can go to the court and request for a probate to be opened. So that's kind of like what legacy planning is in general.
Okay, thank you so much. We will move to this work, let's say, related subjects in a bit, but that's very interesting, and it's also showing how passionate you are about that. And I know that Knightsbridge Group is actually lucky to have you because
thank
you're recognized as an expert on the market here. So, and also, I'm happy to have you here today
you. Thank
so
you,
we can
Em.
talk about it. So, yeah, congratulations. And it's only showing that, being curious, being smart, being knowledgeable and willing to learn and basically squeeze the opportunities
Yeah.
supports the luck. Because people may say you were lucky, you met someone who supported you, but it's not about that. You need to help the luck.
That's true.
The luck doesn't come for people who are not taking actions.
Yeah. I agree
So
with you.
if you want to meet that luck on your journey, do your things, do your work, learn, put
That's true.
effort,
Yes.
and then the luck will find you.
That's correct. I think out of the 100% effort of what you do, 99% is your hard work,
Yeah.
really the willingness to be where you want to be. And then that 1% is that luck.
Yes.
I think that's
Because now we can, look at you, a beautiful lady with beautiful, dress,
Thank
jewelry, successful, an expert in your field. And people may say, oh, she was lucky. But nobody, now they know because we can tell stories and we
Yes.
can, know you better. But nobody knows how many nights you cried probably or you couldn't
out of
sleep.
fear, scared,
Yes,
homesickness,
exactly.
being away from family. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
Of course, and there are years of also learning in law school, which was not easy either, right?
8 years.
Great. So I just wanted to ask you just a little bit about the differences between before we move to this legal things. I still would like to discover a little bit about differences between Dubai and the Philippines. So what differences you can see in the Philippines and here when it comes to the business environment or even the government or the culture?
Well, we talk about the government first. It's not a secret that the Philippines is still trying to be out there, part of the big boys. But at the moment, we're a growing economy, so a lot of things in the government are still kind of like the old school. It's not as digital, for example, as how we have it here. So there's still a lot of bureaucracy. In terms of opportunities for men and women, I
Yes.
would proudly say it's equal. The Philippines is one of the forefronts in legislating for women rights. And it's not even in the beginning of the millennium. It's way back in 1991 when they passed this legislation mandating the Congress and the Senate and the government bodies to hire women in the same numbers as men. So this is to balance out and obviously the decision-making process of the government. In terms of business,
Sorry, I would just ask you a question. Do you think that mandate is a good thing? Because there are, questions that why do we need mandates? Maybe women don't want to participate in this matter as much as men want. I'm just asking this question because there are these voices.
yes.
I have my own opinion as well, of course. But I'd like to ask what you think about these mandates.
Well, probably the forcing is not the best thing to do or the best approach, really. But having this mandate in place and given the population of the Philippines, there's just not shortage of both men and women, especially women who loves these things, who actually promotes and fights for the right to be in these positions, to be part of the government. So a little bit help from the legislation makes such a big contribution especially for these women who really wants to participate in the government, in legislation, to be part of the Supreme Court, for example, because it opens up a lot of opportunities for them. We also do have, again, we're one of the front runners in terms of legislating for women. Recently, we have this legislation that extends maternity leave, for example. We do have this women in nation building, where again, they allow equal opportunity for men and women. We do have the Magna Carta for women, again, promoting their rights. So we recently, just in the beginning of the millennium, the anti-sexual harassment in workplace. Again, mostly for women who are being
But you also told me that it's not only for women but also for men.
for men.
Which
But
is
that's-
very
it
interesting,
is,
right?
it is.
Because it's actually showing the equal approach.
Exactly. I mean, it was later, and after the millennium, but they do recognize the both. Again, they really do promote equal rights for both men and women. But obviously, back in the days, there was more rights for men rather than for women.
Yeah.
So they were advocating for those rights until now, and that now they are looking at everything that we pass on for men. We pass for women, if obviously if it helps, if it maintains equality, fairness, and good kind of like harmony in the society, then we're gonna do that. It's probably also interesting for a lot of people, although now it's no longer something that is not common. That Philippines is one of the few states, especially in the east, where we had two head of states, two female presidents in the last decade, even, I think. So
Amazing.
that's something that it shows a lot that they do. It's not a matter of gender. It's a matter of who is right for the country's governance, who is advocating for the right policies. Doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. And I think that's something that I'm proud of, to be a part of.
Yes, that's truly amazing, because if it doesn't matter, it's a great place to be.
It is,
Because
yes.
if there is a huge disproportion, we need these mandates. We need this, help to
That's
be
correct.
to be invited to the table.
That's true.
And then when it doesn't matter, then it's an amazing place to be.
It is. The only thing is the huge difference between Dubai and the Philippines. So obviously still the quality of living. What we have there is still kind of like behind, compared to what we have in Dubai.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a great part of our decision making as well as Filipinos to move out of the country. There's just a lot more opportunities for us to help ourselves build a career, help our families back home, abroad, than being in the Philippines. Minimum wage is still not enough to feed the family 3 times a day. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Yes, especially that it's a beautiful country.
It's a beautiful country. You should go if you haven't.
I went there, of course. I loved it, and I want to be back. So definitely, definitely I will be back. Especially that the funny fact now, you know that my surname is Jaworska, right?
Yes. Oh my God, we do have he used to be a senator, and he used to be a very famous basketball player.
I've
Yes,
heard. The funny thing was that because it's my name after my husband, my surname. So when I changed my surname and I went for yoga, and the lady at the reception was from the Philippines, and I changed my surname, she looked at it and she was like, "Oh my God, you became Jaworski!"
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, that's a funny fact that it's a
that's
very,
very
famous,
That's very famous,
surname. Yeah, and actually back to the thing that we said at the beginning, that 23% of the population of Dubai are Filipinos.
Yes.
But what I see here, there are a lot of women,
Yes.
and they are not like weak women; they are strong women.
Very strong women. Very
Yeah.
strong women. Just the fact that they're here is a testament to their strength.
And they have children in the Philippines, but they come here to support
Yes.
families.
Well, as I said, it's just the opportunities are not a lot for women.
Yeah.
Not for women, like for Filipinos in general back home.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
especially if you have a growing family, if you have a family, kids to support, education, if you want to give them the best education, it's not free.
Of course.
Everything you have to pay for. So, and if you stay in the Philippines, unless you are head of state, for example, members of the Congress, something really sensational in terms of your job, it's not going to be enough to support, especially college. Uni is just very, very expensive.
But you also said that you were raised by your grandparents, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
it means that your parents had to work.
Had to work, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to be looked after by my grandmother, who is a nurse, by the way. But she decided she had opportunities to work abroad as well. But she's more like, oh, I want to be with my family. I want to see my kids grow and things like that. But it worked out pretty well for her. She's a nurse. She's a nurse for the government, and she's retired now.
Okay, great. But definitely it's a sacrifice, right, for women
is a
to come here, and
sacrifice.
they must miss their children as well. But for being here, thanks to being here, they can support them and grant them better future.
Yes, and like I've been talking to a lot of Filipinos as well. My nanny, we call her Yaya, for my baby, is also from the Philippines, and she moved here about 9-10 years ago, and obviously she's got young kids herself. And I told her, like, what is the motivation for you apart from the money? And she said, it's being able to provide for my kids things that I wasn't able to get when I was their age.
Yeah.
And like those look on their faces when they're happy, when I'm able to get them whatever they need. To me, it's priceless, and that makes it all worth it being 4,000 miles away from home. So that's really strength.
That's a strength, yeah, because also there is no love like mother's love, right?
That's true.
So it must be difficult and a big sacrifice.
It's a big sacrifice.
But for the better future for their children, of course.
That's true.
We see a lot, because there are a lot of Filipinos here. We see them mostly in services, but probably they're not only in services, right? You are not only in services. Like, look at yourself. So what are the main occupations of the Filipinos here?
Well, like I've been discussing with my husband not too long ago, and I was like, what? Because he's not from the Philippines.
Where is he from?
He's born and raised in the UK, but the family is originally from Bangladesh.
Ah, okay.
So I was just talking to him the last time, and I was asking him, like discounting me because I'm already your wife. What do you think? What comes to mind when you see Filipino workers, or when you come across a Filipino? What do you think is their job? And he's like, well, most of the Filipinos I know are into either they work for a family, they're caregivers, or they're in restaurants and things like that. And I don't know if it's a myth that I want to debunk.
We debunk myths here, so you're more than welcome to do that.
Filipinos are not just that, a lot of them are. A lot of Filipinos that move here, there's a good percentage that they move here because, they got an offer to work for a family, to be a nanny, to be caregiver. A lot of them are nurses. There's a joke in my country that our biggest export is actually manpower, because everywhere you go, there's just at least one Filipino. But I think it's something that people don't realize outside the Philippines, that Filipinos are actually more than that. There's a huge number of them, but Filipinos are not just unskilled laborers, and they are not just nurses. A lot of them are actually into IT. A lot of them are engineers. Like, for example, a lawyer myself. Although most of our lawyers try to stay in the Philippines because practice is good, and it's because a territorial kind of like profession. It takes another bit of time for you to kind of like fit in if you move in another jurisdiction. But something that I want to kind of like make it clear to people
Yes.
that we're not just that, we are capable of so much more. But then really a high number is into service related type of job. I think it goes to show how what kind of people we are in the Philippines. You know, we're just hardworking. If it means we are able to provide for the family, whatever that is, just give it to me. You know, and the easiest thing and the most common jobs we have here, the easiest thing to get into is into hotel and management related services, which we see a lot in hotels, in restaurants. There are many of us. We're just kind of like very happy people. We like interacting with clients, with other nationalities. We like to joke around them. So I think that's why you see in a lot of hospitality related jobs, they prefer Filipinos, not because number one, they're hardworking. They don't mind about the work. You ask them to do it, they do it. And also because we love interacting regardless of nationality, where you come from. We just love interacting.
Yeah, you're kind people.
Thank you.
And you love singing.
We do.
I
Although
remember my trip to the Filipinos. I've seen karaoke everywhere.
That's true. That's true. We love it. I think as early as, when they start babbling, that's
Yeah.
when they are introduced to karaoke. Yes, we love it.
Great, great. But that's it. Like when you think about it, every fourth person is the Filipino. Then obviously you see them in the services, but also as you said, you take also like specialized roles in engineering, law,
IT.
IT.
In the healthcare.
What's
we've
the
got
population of the
doctors.
Filipinos in the Philippines? Do you know?
If I get it right, we're about 120 million.
120
Yes.
million okay, so it's 3 times bigger than my country, Poland.
Yeah, it's a very dense nation.
Yeah. That's huge. And 12 times bigger than the UAE. That matter, right?
Yes, yes, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Okay, Kim, let's move to your professional world. You are a lawyer in the Knightsbridge Group, a legal firm. So let's talk a little bit about the law. So would you be able to explain us what's the difference between Sharia law and the legal law, and what is the impact that it can have on the residents here in the UAE?
So UAE is a mix of civil and Sharia law. It is Islamic country.
Yes.
So civil law basically applies more on commercial things and criminal matters, and Sharia law is mostly on personal matters like family law, divorce, inheritance, and a little bits and pieces of the criminal aspects when it comes to morality and public law.
Okay.
So, for example, civil law, most countries in Europe are actually follow civil law, and then we do have like the likes of UK, which follows the common law. So there's a little bit kind of like difference between the two. UAE in general is the federal is civil and Sharia law. And then we have those mini jurisdictions, the likes of ADGM and the IFC, where they have their own rule of law, which is common law. One is codified and one is non-codified. They follow the British common law. Basically, civil law is mostly around statutes. They really don't. They decide based on the interpretation of the law, and not really on precedents. Even if, for example, a case has been decided long time back, and a similar case with similar facts is in front of is at bar at the moment, they normally do go for the interpretation of law, and then alongside with the precedents, with case studies.
Okay.
Common law, on the other hand, is they focus only on the case precedents, followed by the statutory law. So that's kind of like the main difference. And again, UAE is a hybrid of civil and Sharia. Sharia is basically based on the teachings of the Quran and the Hadith, which is the life of the Prophet back in the days. That's basically what it revolves around. Again, it's mostly applicable on matters such as marriage, divorce, for
So
example.
what does it say? So in case of a divorce, for example, what do we need to be aware of?
There has been a few amendments here and there now at present, but before, if we look into the Sharia law, women, except for exceptional circumstances, cannot file for a divorce.
Cannot file for the divorce.
But things are evolving now. Things are changing. But for non-Muslims or for expatriates, they can choose to elect their country of nationality or basically the country where the marriage has been concluded. So they do have a little bit more options than the locals, for example, or for Muslims that got married here.
So sorry, Kim. So even if I'm an expatriate and I a non-Muslim and I decide to conclude my marriage here in the UAE, I fall under the Sharia law?
No. Not automatically, because Sharia law is applicable first and foremost on Muslims.
Okay.
Yeah, and second of all, mostly for like the locals, and then the the Muslims coming from different country that choose to be married under the Sharia law, because they do have an option to, for example, go to civil courts. Then they do have the option again if they're Muslims but from a different country like France or European country. Then they do have an option to elect the country of their nationality. Obviously, it involves a lot of paperwork, but ultimately there's a little bit of more resolution than that of the local Muslim people.
Okay. So you said that one thing is that a woman cannot file for a divorce. What are the other impacts of Sharia law on divorces, for example?
The custody of the kids. Again, this is an evolving matter, but as a general rule, if there's a divorce, it takes a little bit of what do you call this? Mediation from the court to decide whether the kid is gonna go to the mom or to the dad. So it's not automatic, like when the kid is 7 and below, it should go to the mom. There's always has to be a resolution from the court. So that's also something that is Sharia principle, because Sharia and Islam in general is a patriarchal religion. So normally they believe that it helps a lot in nation building and family building, that it follows the rule of the head of the family.
So it's a father.
Yes.
Okay. What about the inheritance?
Inheritance, under the Sharia law, you can only, as a Muslim, you can only dispose of 1/3 of your entire assets freely. And then the rest, after taking account of this 1/3, the rest should be distributed under Sharia law. And again, since we do believe that man has to provide for their family, normally, in most cases, the sons or the husbands get a little bit bigger share than that of the wife or the daughters, just because they have a family to provide for. So that's kind of like the principle around it as to why sons get more than the daughters.
So it's again coming from the patriarchal culture. Okay, I understand. Thank you. But coming back to a little bit of personal matters, you converted from being a Catholic to a Muslim, right?
I did, yes. That was 16th of December 2022, and then
Okay.
2 years later, my daughter was born
Okay.
on that same day. So to me, it's nothing short of miraculous, you know.
Wow.
On the day I converted, 2 years later, my daughter
So it
is
was
born.
totally your choice. You wanted it.
Yes,
And
it was it wasn't immediate. It wasn't something impulsive. It wasn't because of certain things that, for example, I fell in love. No, of on to a Muslim man. No, that wasn't the case. It was really something that I looked into. You know, I meditated about. It started back in 2018. I came across this one verse in the Quran. I'm not going to say it in Arabic. I don't want to get it wrong. But basically, it's about these two seas that meet but will not join. And they found it. I'm not sure about where they found it. So it was written in the Quran. Quran was obviously there since 1400 years ago, and they recently found that two seas, different seas, yeah, they're different in terms of density. That's why they meet but they don't join.
yeah.
So to me, that was
Why did it matter to you that much?
because you know, I didn't want to take it. I didn't want to think that it might be just literally, you know. So maybe in the Bible, yeah, I don't want to get any of this wrong or offend anyone, basically. But in the Bible, I also wanted to understand maybe there's something similar to that, but figuratively. They probably wrote it figuratively. So I did my research, and that kind of like, for the lack of a better term, doubted what I was believing in at the time. So what I did, I was reading more. You know, I didn't want my decisions to be you know, like be tainted by anyone else's opinion. I wanted to be of my own because I understand it and I believe it, that what I believe is what I'm comfortable at, and no one has forced me. No one is basically trying to made me think otherwise. It's all me. So that's kind of like how I approached it. So I did a lot of readings. I'm talking to a lot of really conservative Muslim women, you know, just to kind of like, I ask about few things like what does this mean, and then they help me. They talk to like imams and things like that, and they help me understand. And then in 2019, my mother unfortunately passed away. So that kind of like took a hold.
Yeah.
I didn't focus on anything religious at the time. I was just really like 100% mad, everything and everyone after my mom passed away. So it took another 2 years of trying to get back to something you want to believe in. You know, it didn't matter to me at the time whether I was a Christian or I was a Muslim, but because I didn't have nothing I believe in at the time, it took another 2 years to get me back to that.
Okay.
And then I met my husband. My husband is I'd say a religious man. Yeah, he's very, very close to his deen. So, you know, like we talk about this not for the purpose of swaying me to convert to Islam, but kind of like give me a little bit more understanding of what the religion is all about. That there are things people say that is not true about it, that it's not a religion of peace, that most of Muslims are just bunch of terrorists, you know, because these are, if you're not from this part of the world, back in East, where Indonesia is one of the biggest country by population of Muslim, yeah. But apart from that, Philippines is colonized by Spain, so that's when Christianity and Catholicism, for that matter, has been introduced. 333 years we've been run by Spaniards. So we're not really too open to the idea of Muslims. There's still Muslims down south, but they're a minority. You know, they don't normally go to the cities like Manila, to my city where I grew up. They keep it niche around themselves. They keep it close. So we're as a lady who grew up not really knowing them entirely. It's a little bit of a digging that I have to do to understand. But then really, I fell in love with the religion. The more I read it, I read the Quran, the English version of the Quran, and you know, there was nothing more convincing than that book. So on December 16th, I went of 2022, I went to the Islamic Affairs. And I really want to make it official. I want to have something that I can look back on, you know. So they issued me a certificate of conversion where they put my Islamic name. So and my Muslim name is basically Khadija. So that's the first wife of the Prophet. Yeah, it's and funny enough, you know, when I was looking into it, apparently Khadija in Arabic it means premature baby, and I was born premature as well. So
but who chose it for you?
It was something because I didn't know that you have to provide a Muslim name when you're there in the Islamic Affairs office and doing your reverting. They were like, you have to choose. I was like, I don't know. And then my husband just Khadija. Khadija is one of the most noble women in Islam.
Yes.
So I was like, okay. And then I was like looking into it. It makes sense because I was also a premature baby.
Okay, interesting. But you knew about all of the consequences that Sharia law would put on you as well in the long term, that, you know, about the inheritance or divorces, etc. But still, you wanted to.
Because, you know, I'm convinced that all of these principles around Sharia, again, it's basically around the teachings of the Quran and the life of the Prophet. We call it the Hadith. I know there's a good reason behind it, and I do firmly believe that there's a good reason why these things are put in place. So I don't question it. I think it's for the best. And again, as we Muslims say, Allah knows best, you know. So whatever is there, we believe that it is just for the best of the family and whoever is involved.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting what you're saying. Thank you for your, you know, sharing with us your
it's
story.
My pleasure.
It's very
I
inspiring.
love sharing it.
Yeah, and I love listening and asking questions. And, you know, I think it's about being open to stories, to people's lives experience and their choices, why they did it, without like judging or putting, you know, putting yourself in a place that you know better, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting what you're saying. So thank you for that. But moving forward, so we were talking about civil law, common law, Sharia law.
Yes.
And I would like to ask you about the wills and power of attorneys. Why are they important here for non-Muslim people? Because now we are talking about, let's say, me, right? So why should I have a will or at least power of attorney here in the UAE?
So we talk about power of attorney first. We know that the country is a very dynamic, fast-paced, a lot of expatriates coming in and out, and even residents don't really live here full time. So most of their affairs obviously still remain here. So the power of attorney is very helpful, especially for business owners or residents that has vast assets in the UAE for ease. For example, they are abroad and they want to sell their car. If you want to sell your car, you have to be here. You have to be present. But if you do have a power of attorney, then you don't have to be here. Your agent on the ground can do that for you. For example, in terms of your companies, if, for example, you do want to sell some of your shares or whole of your shares in the company, most likely, a lot of times, you are required to be here to sign before the notary public. If you do have a power of attorney, you don't have to do that. So it saves a lot of time. Obviously, one of the most valuable, priceless thing a man has is their time. You know, so the more you save it, the more the better for for you. And for example, also for instances where you get medically incapacitated, for some reasons you can't travel, or just for medical reasons, if you do have a medical POA.
Or you are in coma.
Yes,
And then
exactly.
your family cannot use the assets that you have.
That's
right?
true. Then, obviously, your agent, whoever is named on your power of attorney, can do a little bit of probably winding up for you, whatever you need, if you were not in that condition. So it's very important for people who are always away. Yeah. So it saves a lot of time. For business owners who, again, most of the business owners are not in the country, so it helps them manage the day-to-day affairs of their company. For banking as well, banking is such a headache at the moment for people who are not in the country. But if you do have POAs, for example, corporate bank accounts, you have a POA for your general manager, then that can also ease the transactions that you probably need to do.
Yeah.
And then again, for medical reasons, it doesn't basically dilute your asset because you're not able to decide on anything because you're just medically incapacitated, you're in coma,
Yes.
or for some other reasons that basically doesn't allow you to be here. POA helps you a lot in alleviating those problems.
Yeah, that's clear. That's clear. And so it's for certain people, let's
Exactly.
say, but the will,
The
I think, is
will,
for everyone.
it is for everyone. Yes. So POA, the power of attorney remains in effect right after you sign it and during your lifetime. If the power of attorney, like whoever has given that power of attorney, passed away, then the power of attorney is already considered null and void. The will, on the other hand, takes effect after the demise of the testator. So the importance of will is that it gives direction to how your assets are distributed according to your wishes and not according to what the current legislation say, because it might be different from what you wanted for your assets, right? Especially for expatriates, non-Muslims, and for those who have minor children, having a will in place that includes guardianship clauses really makes it easy, for the lack of a better term, easier for people who's going to look after them. It's clear there that I want Mr. X and X to look after my minor kids in the event of my passing.
Yep.
So it's very clear, because if you don't have that normally, what happens? Social welfare might probably take in your kid. It's just a little bit more traumatizing for the kid, and we don't want that, as parents. So having a will in place, having guardianship statements, guardianship clauses makes it a lot clearer for, the where the kid who's going to look after your minor children, and then we go after the assets, and it's just a lot quicker if you have a will as opposed to not having a will, especially if you are an expatriate, because there's always a conflict between the law of nationality and whatever legislation will apply on your assets here.
Okay.
If you have a will, it still takes a little bit long. Probate proceedings, where the court looks into the validity of the clauses and the wills and how it will be distributed, takes between 9 to about 12 months. If you don't have a will, on the other hand, it will definitely take longer than that.
Okay.
So it's a lot better in terms of time efficiency.
What if I have a will from my home country, for example?
They do recognize it here, but can I say it 100%? No. There's a lot of paperwork that will be required from your executors for that will to be recognized here. You want to make sure that everything is already approved by your courts, family courts in for example in Poland, and then it has to be attested by the relevant embassies in Poland, and then we have to come here. We have also to go to the courts, do the same review of the will, have it approved, and then that's the only time we can go, for example, to the real estate developers or to the banks to start lifting the assets or distributing the assets. So it takes a lot longer. It can get frustrating, and obviously, the family members are already kind of like going through
Difficult
a
times,
difficult
right?
time, and to have this, it doesn't really help anyone. So having a will in place that's very clear, very precise. Normally, what I do advise the clients, if they can, is to kind of like have something in place, a legacy planning tool where the asset is located. In that case, what the legislation says on a particular asset is very clear, and you know it. In as opposed to having cross-border type of vehicles, where, for example, we have something. We have a will. For example, I have a will in the Philippines, and then I have assets here. It might be difficult for my family members to kind of like put it in place.
Yeah.
So it's vital for
Yeah.
people to think about this ahead of time.
For people who would like to do it with the company that you work for, could you share what are the approximate costs of the will or power of attorney?
Yes, for the wills, it's we do DIFC wills. They do have fixed price. The government, the DIFC court says fixed price on this. It depends of what type of will, because we do have different types of wills in terms of doing it with the DIFC. The most common one is the full will, the standard one, which covers all types of assets and has guardianship clauses. So it doesn't matter what type of asset you are. It also allows worldwide coverage. That's a new one. I think it was only in 2019 where they allowed worldwide assets. Before, it was only Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah. And then we do have the property will that covers up to 10 properties in Dubai. We do have business will that covers up to 5 companies in Dubai. We have banks, financial will that covers up to 5 banks in Dubai. So for these very specific wills, except for the standard will, we're looking between 5,000 to 7,500, depending if it's single will or a mirror will.
And meaning for you and your husband or wife, right?
Yes, exactly. And then for standard full will, we are looking at 10 or 15, again, depending if it's a single will or the one you want to do with your husband or your wife. And then in terms of costs of, facilitating, guiding you, preparing the will for you, we're looking at about $1,500. So all in all,
Dollars.
Yes, all in all, we're looking at about between maybe 15 to 20,000 dirhams, more or less.
Okay, thank you. And what are other things that people who are relocating to Dubai looking for?
I think number one is safety, especially that most of the statistics shows that a lot of people relocating to the UAE are families.
Yes.
So it's very important for them to look at the schools, quality of education, and most importantly, safety. I've done a little bit of a research for a write-up that we're preparing not too long ago, that even the ultra rich are the number one consideration is not about the tax benefits anymore. It's the safety for their kids. And obviously in Dubai, we know that that's something that they really come with, the safety, the environment. I know that I can walk in the streets of Dubai at 12 midnight without any fear of being stabbed, being kidnapped, or whatever, because it's just safety that the city or the country in general affords. And Bangsan really, that kind of like attracts a lot of expatriates to relocate and with their family in general.
Yeah. So what are the things that you or the company that you work for can help with these people that are relocating here? You said about the power of attorney, about the wills, but what else?
I think really everything they need to settle in the country, we are able to assist them on that front, from, for example, looking for schools for their kids, like guiding them on, based on their criteria, we can suggest and look for schools that are good for their kids. We can look for the neighborhoods they want to live in, again, depending on what they're looking for. Maybe they want more greens, maybe they want more water. So that's something that we can also assist. We can help them with personal banking, corporate banking, their visas of their helpers, of their kids, and setting their own vehicles, corporate, their companies. We can advise on structuring where is the best jurisdiction to set their company up. What are the best banking facility they can have for their particular company. The right structure. Should we go in their personal capacity as individual shareholder, or should we have another special purpose vehicle to hold their shares, just to kind of like mitigate the risks, potentially. So basically, around those relocation, whatever support they need, we should be able to provide those.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out to you if they are looking for any of this support?
Well, we do have a beautiful office in Business Bay. They are welcome to visit our office. They can visit our website as well. It's kbgroup.ae, and they can send us an email. I'm pretty sure that my details will be available.
Yes.
On our Instagram. We are all over the social media as well, Knightsbridge Group AE, and we are on LinkedIn. So really, any possible, we're easily Googleable, if that's even a word. They search for Knightsbridge Group, and we should be easily findable.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kim. Is there anything at the end that you would like to, share with our audience?
Yes, especially for the younger generation, it's always easier to be scared.
Yeah.
But it's that getting out of your comfort zone that really hones and shape your personality. And, it really takes a long way. And it's that first step. It's that one big step that you just need to take.
Yeah.
And then the rest is easy.
Yeah, and the luck will find you.
And the luck will find you, yes, definitely. Just don't give up,
Exactly, be consequent and don't give up. Thank you so much, Kim. It was
Thank you,
such a pleasure
Amelia,
to
for
have
having
you here.
me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you found this story inspiring, I have a small request. Share it with your friends and leave a positive review. I also encourage you to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram. You will find the link in the episode's description. Until next time, take care and see you soon.